Hello and welcome. It's a rainy day here on the ground in Punjab. The clouds have been thundering almost as if to capture the mood of a state on edge. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. We're here on the ground to report on what's being called Operation Amritpal. Amritpal Singh is a Khalistani sympathizer whom the police say has clear links to the ISI, and now there is increasing evidence that he was raising a private militia, the markings of which have been found on the weapons and the bulletproof vests that have been seized. But of course, there are also tough questions for the police, the Punjab police. The Punjab police is being asked to explain how, after a 25-kilometer car chase, Amritpal Singh was able to get away. In the meantime, this issue has now erupted as a diplomatic furor. Even as AKF markings appeared, that's the Anandpur Khalsa Forge, the private militia that Amritpal Singh was trying to raise, and we've reported on that, and you'll see clips of that in this program, the details of it. Across the oceans, in London, in United Kingdom, the Indian flag was desecrated at the High Commission in London. People calling themselves Khalistani supporters actually climbed up to the balcony and took it down. India has registered its protest in the strongest possible terms. And India had a symbolically powerful answer, a giant version of the Tiranga. You can see that there in the pictures is a counter to the Khalistanis. But here on the ground, the worrying question is this the 80s redux? Amritpal Singh has been compared with Bhindranwale. You can hear the thunder rumbling behind me as we take temporary shelter to bring you this live broadcast chronicling, in a sense, the long shadow of Khalistan that has come to haunt Punjab again, years that most of us who are old enough to remember would rather forget. Let's introduce our guests on the program today. Joining us is SP Vaid, who's of course one of our senior most police officers. He's been the Director General of Police in Jammu and Kashmir. Good to see you. Sherbir Panag. Sherbir has been taking on the Canadian parliamentarians who have been making ridiculous remarks, seeing this through the prism of so-called human rights instead of seeing this as an anti-India, well-funded, well-oiled machinery that it clearly is. Good to see you, Sherbir. Also joining us is a veteran diplomat for a diplomatic perspective on all that is happening with the United Kingdom and Canada, Ambassador Manju Seth. And finally joining us is someone I believe has covered Punjab like nobody else, literally walking into Janelle Singh Bhindranwala's den, Tavleen Singh, author and columnist. It's very good to see all of you. And Tavleen, I think I must start with you. You know, here on the ground, the police contests the parallels that are being drawn with Bhindranwale. They say that Amritpal Singh has neither the capacity nor the determination, nor even the oratory or the charisma. He's after all run away, as they point out. Even so, what's happening is really worrying. Does this give you a horrible sense of deja vu? And what are the questions upmost on your mind, Tavleen?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm going to say something that's going to sound very controversial. I think that they should be talking to him. I think that he's given only one interview, which I listened to, and he was actually sounding a lot more reasonable than Bhindranwale ever did. He said, I am trying to get the Jat Sikh youth to go away from the drugs business. And he said, I'm trying to revive the Khalsa. Now, this thing that you're calling an army and a militia and all that, it might just be the normal kind of, he might just be trying to get guys to be aware of what it means to be a Khalsa. Now, I actually think that the biggest mistake that was made in the handling of Bhindranwale was that nobody tried to talk to him. And it was a very similar situation. There was a vacuum. The Akali Dal leadership was discredited. The Congress party was discredited. And there was a sense that, a vacuum that Bhindranwale filled. And nobody talked to him.
Can I come in? Can I come in just to say?
Why is nobody talking to this man?
Can I just come in and say, I mean, you know Punjab better than I do, but I have to disagree for a couple of reasons. One, he spoke to my colleague Zafar Iqbal, and, so many of his comments were so inflammatory, we actually made the editorial decision to to leave out some of them. The language he used in support of Khalistan and so on. Secondly, if we can play the images again of what happened in London today at a High Commission, you saw the flag being desecrated. You've seen the Khalistanis come out of the woodworks in both Canada and the United Kingdom. If this guy is someone without backing, without any international linkages, you wouldn't see these groups jumping to his defense. He's not some misguided youth, Tavleen, in the way that I think you're suggesting.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that he's a misguided youth. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. But I really want to remind you that there was no Khalistan support until the attack on the Golden Temple. Until then, Pindrawale was sort of kind of, making noises and saying stupid things and, insulting people, etc. And this man seems to be more likely to be somebody that you can talk to and say, okay, what do you want? Now, he has said, I don't want Khalistan, but I want to, if you can talk about the Hindu Rashtra, we can talk about Khalistan. Maybe what he's asking for is something we need to find out before we start labeling him an ISI agent. Suddenly, overnight, everyone's discovered that he has links to the ISI. Pakistan's exploding. The army is busy trying to control Imran Khan. Do we seriously believe that they're going to try reviving the Khalistan movement at this point? I don't think that that's possible.
Well, you said your remarks are controversial, and they indeed are. I'm not sure, how many people on this panel would agree with you, but let's open it up. I do disagree. I find the rhetoric on the ground extremely alarming and disturbing. They conflate all kinds of issues that they have with the government, of course, to talk about Khalistan, but the rhetoric is dangerous, and the kind of imagery that we're seeing, if we can just, before I come to SP Ved, play out what we're seeing of this private militia, the Anandpur Khalsa Forge. Now, he has these words transcribed on the gates of his residence in his village in Amritsar. All of his key associates have bulletproof vests, and you'll see these images coming up, and it says AKF. So these are images, that are highly disturbing. I don't know who or what could possibly bring him to a reasonable conversation. In fact, Mr. Ved, the police had been criticized for not arresting him earlier. Now, Tavleen says you need to talk to him. Firstly, he's on the run. He's absconding. We don't know when or if he will be caught. So talking to him is a far cry, but these images are highly disturbing. Mr. Ved.
Good afternoon, Barkha. And I also disagree with Ma'am Tavleen. I have a lot of regard for her. But then what is on the ground, I don't think there's no harm in talking on that count. But do you think today, if there is a person who is raising his private army, who there are credible information about his contacts in Dubai, somebody wrote his brother, how he contacted him on behalf of ISI, and how some amount of money is being transferred on him. After all, he's funding all these things. To raise a private army, I think you need a lot of money. He was just a driver in Dubai, and today look at the wherewithal he's carrying with him, and how suddenly he's catapulted into a public figure in just 6 months. There is definitely a sinister design behind this. And as far as talking is concerned, police, I think the present political dispensation was quite positive towards him earlier. In fact, when that incident in Ajnala police station happened, after that, the whole nation started raising voices against what is happening. After all, there is a rule of law in this country. You just cannot overrun a police station and take out the accused. If you feel somebody is innocent, there is a proper established procedure of law to take him out. You approach the court, you get the bail done, not to run over the police station and take it. And I think police that day showed a lot of restraint. I completely agree with Punjab police people, because he had carried Granth Sahib with him, and any desecration would have been very, very suicidal. Already, if you recall, when Khalistani movement happened in the 80s, uh,
Yeah.
it was mishandling at the level of political level at that
and
time
and
from Delhi.
and,
From
and
Delhi, and
I have to just jump in to give context of what happened in Ajnala. In Ajnala, Amritpal Singh and his supporters overran a police station using the Guru Granth Sahib as a shield. In Punjab, there's a lot of talk of beadbi or sacrilege, and if that isn't sacrilege, I don't know what is. At that time, the Punjab police was criticized for not being tough on him. Police officers are meeting here in Punjab say, imagine if there had been shots fired, and imagine if the vehicle in which the Granth Sahib was being carried, somebody went down there. It was a very difficult situation for them. So Tavleen, I don't know. We'll come back to why you believe this, but really, it's you think of this man carrying the Granth Sahib into a police station to secure the release of one of his aides. Ambassador Seth, I want to come to you in a moment, but I just want to play out a short clip of one of Punjab's top police officers told me about what they're now calling the private militia that Amritpal Singh was trying to raise.
Anandpur Khalsa Fauj. In other words, Amritpal Singh, it is now suspected, was trying to raise his own private militia called AKF. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
इसमें जो हमें राइफल्स मिली हैं, जो बीपी जैकेट्स मिली हैं, इवन उसका जो गेट है, उसके रेजिडेंस का जो गेट है, उस पे AKF का जो मार्क मिला है, जिसको प्रिलिमिनरी वेरिफिकेशन में इसको अनंतपुर खालसा फौज जो है वो इसको पाया गया है, और इस पे हम फर्दर अभी इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर रहे हैं. इसमें जो प्राइमरी इन्वेस्टिगेशन में जो आया कि जो क्लोज एसोसिएट थे इसके, जो आर्म्ड जो
दलजीत कलसी एंड अदर्स
जो एसोसिएट्स थे बहुत क्लोज, उनको इसने शायद नाम दिया हुआ था अनंतपुर खालसा फौज का.
बट लाइक अ प्राइवेट आर्मी
इसमें बट अभी और हमारी इन्वेस्टिगेशन है वो चल रही है, एंड वी विल कम आउट विद फैक्ट्स जब और एस्टेब्लिश.
पर ये मार्किंग मिली है बुलेट प्रूफ वेस्ट
पे, जो राइफल्स हैं उस पे, और जो
इसके घर के
गेट है उस पे, तीनों पे मिली है.
So that's about the Anandpur Khalsa Fauj. Ambassador Seth, this is now involving the foreign ministry because of what happened in the United Kingdom. The Canadian parliamentarians are speaking about it. You have Khalistanis at the gates of the parliament in Ottawa. So this what could have been a domestic law and order issue that would have been dealt internally, maybe even in the way that Tavleen is suggesting. It seems that stage is far gone. That stage is far gone. Had this man been willing to be arrested, for instance, perhaps there would have been a different view of him. But he ran, and he's on the run. And as we saw, what happened in London, unacceptable. And I know diplomats have long had to battle with support and sympathy in the diaspora. Again, well-oiled machinery, both in United Kingdom and Canada. I just want to bring you in on a diplomatic perspective. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Absolutely. This has now gone beyond India's shores, and the incident at the UK High Commission of desecrating the flag and the visuals are quite horrifying, and I'm very, very sad that they were allowed to happen at all, because the police there, what were they doing? They should have ensured that nobody could access the Indian High Commission. How could somebody climb onto the balcony like that? I think it was really not acceptable. And the fact that these supporters of somebody in India who has now got, as you mentioned, a huge militia he has put up, he has sort of put together. I think his intentions are clear, that he is not accepting the Indian India as a country, and he wants to bring about violent change. Because all their guns and other sort of equipment that they are being armed with, it doesn't look like he has any peaceful intentions or of doing anything peacefully. And it seems that he has support and funding from across the border. It appears very, very plausible, and there's a network operating. As we can see, it seems to be a coordinated protest. Otherwise, why would all these people across the country, across in different capitals, be supporting somebody who is supposed to be who, against whom an arrest warrant is issued. Why should they?
But realistically, before I come to Sherby, very briefly, ma'am, what can India do? We've summoned UK's Deputy High Commissioner. We've registered our protest. We've called the indifference that that allowed this to happen unacceptable. But more than that, I mean, what can we do? This has been a long-standing battle in countries like Canada and the UK.
Yes, we have been taking it up regularly with all the governments and the embassies here in Delhi. But it appears that the local parliamentarians there and other people in politics seem to be sympathetic to these people, and that is why the governments there are hesitant to take any action. And there's a huge diaspora as well. So, and I'm not sure that they distinguish or they recognize that these people are anti-Indian in any way, or they don't want to recognize, let me put it that way. And all our attempts to convey this to them somehow are not listened to by them, and they continue to sort of support or be supportive and not take the firm action that is required against these elements in their country.
And I think, as you said, this has now traveled beyond India's shores. This is a two-front battle, Sherby. This is a battle within. This is a battle now outside. And then there are questions for the police. But I think, as SP Vaid pointed out, damned if they do, damned if they don't. A lot of the police officers have been meeting here saying they felt their hands were tied in Ajnala. There's also dramatic footage caught on CCTV of a 25-kilometer car chase. We now know there were 5 cars that Amritpal and his aides were traveling in. The last one seized is a Mercedes SUV. It's being linked, in fact, to a drugs cartel. His uncle and his driver, who were last seen with him, have surrendered. But he is on the run in the 5th car. Now, the police is saying, hum kare to hame gali, hum na kare to hame gali. Sherveer, how do you see what's happened thus far?
Barkha, first and foremost, let me start out by saying that I disagree with Mr. Tavleen Singh's assessment. Of course, goes without saying that one has a lot of regard and respect for her. Amritpal has not just given one interview. He has several interviews, and in fact, he's been interviewed by every Tom, Dick, and Harry after the Ajnala incident. He has nothing in these interviews. I don't know which interview Ms. Singh had a chance to view, but nothing in the rest of the interviews comes across as anybody who's willing to talk. He has contorted views of comparing how Mahatma Gandhi had a British passport and therefore he has an Indian passport. He has no idea about the constitution, rule of law, etc., etc. And his communication in terms of Khalistan is very, very clear. The moment he gets asked a tough question, he quickly obfuscates it and starts spinning it around and calling it Amrit Prachar and Amrit Sanchar. So that's where he's, and even when he was asked straight questions about bringing the Sri Guru Granth Sahib to Ajnala, he basically just spun those questions around and didn't give straight answers, and gave rhetorical responses back to most of the reporters, who unfortunately, due to their probably lack of knowledge of Punjab, weren't able to really cross-question him, including making ridiculous statements about how there is no Gurmukhi with respect to the railway station in Amritsar, etc., etc. So that's just putting him aside. My assessment of Amritpal is a charlatan who is claiming to speak on behalf of a majority of Sikhs in Punjab and does not have the ground resonance folks believe he has. He's a small-time criminal thug who was a digital media creation, came out of the sort of Deep Sidhu narrative, took over Waris Punjab. There's a lot of controversy associated with whether he was in touch with Deep Sidhu. There are reports which suggest that Deep Sidhu in fact blocked him, leaving aside, Barkha, your and my views on Deep Sidhu, which are public and very, very well known. So there's a controversial element there. He was a digital creation. He didn't spin out of nowhere. He's been around for a while, but Ajnala was his crowning glory. And the fact of the matter is, no matter which way we slice it, dice it, and try and give excuses for what the police action is, the fact of the matter is the Punjab police capitulated at Ajnala. There was no question of allowing this small-time thug to come out, negotiate with the police in this manner, and allow for the police to sort of release his close aid by claiming evidence was given. There are proper legal processes for evidence, and coming and surrounding a police station and barging in with.
What about the fact that the police say that given that he carried the Granth Sahib, as a shield, it became a very complicated situation for them.
It was complicated, Barkha, but the incident came to a close. They didn't have to go after by the time the issue of the statements that had to be released came out, were released out at a separate place. Arrests could have been made much faster. And this brings me to the next point regarding Bedvi. I was in Ajnala the very next day and in Amritsar to go and actually see what the ground sentiment was. And the ground sentiment was there was very little ground support on the point that he brought the Shri Guru Granth Sahib with him to the Ajnala police station and tried to use it as a prop in a cowardly manner. Over and above that, this is close on the heels of Amritpal supporters breaking down chairs and benches in gurdwaras for the elderly to sit, calling that Bedvi. So there was a sentiment against him. There is a sentiment pro him. There's no denying that. But there was a moment, and we acted too far. We acted too late.
Let me just.
I think to sort of bring this into context, we should have acted against him sooner. The center and state had to have come together. His level of support and his meteoric rise out of nowhere could not have been merely a ground-swelled movement. There is evidently, Pakistan may be starving, but Pakistan will not lose an opportunity to have intelligence operations against India.
And can I just bring in Tavleen, because she has her hand up?
Can I just conclude 2 points, Barkha? So I think that's really, really important to bring out in terms of where his backing is coming from. And over and above the fact that we have a diaspora that unfortunately over a period of time has taken myths and historic and concocted figures and passed them on for fact. And now we're looking at a generation after 1984 who started believing them as the gospel truth, which also fuels this challenge and brings it about and adds to the complication.
I think you make some excellent points, but let me just bring in Tavleen. Tavleen, you started by saying, hey, why not talk to him? And you've heard everybody, including me, disagree with you. What do you say to the fact that the police is damned either way? They were roundly slammed after Ajnala. What do you say?
I would say that you're not looking at it politically. This is not a police matter. This is exactly the mistake they made with Pindrawale. It started off with he had a problem with the police, and then it became a political issue. Now, what I'm not hearing from any of the other panelists, including you, by the way, is that there is a political issue here. The political issue is that the Akalis are discredited in Punjab, the Congress is, the BJP is, every mainstream politician in Punjab is discredited. I hear from people who are in the farming community in Punjab, that they think that he's been put up, that he's being backed by the government of India. Now, this is very dangerous one minute. We know that
What would any government get
as well. We know that. And we also know that if I actually went to Rajiv Gandhi just before Operation Blue Star and said, give General Shabeg Singh his pension, and you won't need to go into the Golden Temple to do all this. Pindrawale, there's been a book written by K.C. Singh, by the way, recently, in which he talks about the number of times they could have defused the situation. What I'm talking about is it is a political problem, and he does not have the support on the ground, as Sherbir just said. I've been saying that as well. But certainly he is capable of creating a situation of getting support if he's going to be locked up under the NS, whatever the thing is that you're
NSA,
locked up.
National Security Act. Okay.
So, I don't link it with those Khalistanis in Canada and England. Those guys are always there, and they're a small group of lunatics. Let them be. This is our problem and has to be solved politically, or we're on very dangerous ground.
Well, let me get in Ambassador Manju and then SP Ved on this point, that ignore what's happening in UK and Canada. Sometimes that is the best response. Don't join the dots. Keep this issue domestic. Deal with it politically. What do you say to that, Ambassador? That's certainly not been India's response. And I think there's been there's been a lot of public anger about what happened with the flag, a lot of applauding for what happened after that, the giant Tiranga being put up at the High Commission. Do go ahead.
It is not and cannot be limited to being a domestic issue, especially after what has happened. And these group of people, even if they are not a huge number, they were supporting Amritpal, and they said that, and they were supporting Khalistan. So I think we cannot isolate these two incidents, and they're doing it in tandem. And we cannot say that this is only a domestic issue. It may be partly a domestic issue, but I think if it is going to, go and if people are going, or their supporters or sympathizers are going to go and attack our diplomatic missions, I think that is absolutely not acceptable at all. And we cannot but respond. And we have to take, we have to work with the governments there, and we cannot just say that this is a domestic issue. It's no longer a domestic issue, I think.
Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Vaid at this point. Mr. Vaid, having served in Kashmir, I think you more than anybody else here have some sense of when it's politics, when it's police, and often it's both. You see, whether or not the politics works, and I take Tavleen's point that on the ground, you still have people complaining bitterly कि farm laws तो वापस ले लिए, लेकिन MSP का क्या हुआ, कुछ नहीं हुआ, हमारे कोई नहीं सुनता. That is, I'm afraid separate from what's going on here. In my opinion, Tavleen doesn't think so. As a senior police officer, what do you think the Punjab police is going through right now? What do you think they're thinking right now?
Barkha, it's a difficult situation for Punjab police, and I do agree with my co-panelist on one count that yes, there is no, he doesn't command following amongst the people. Obviously, the vast majority of Sikhs do not buy this argument, and Hindus and Sikhs are connected through umbilical cord. If you go a few years back, elder son of every family used to be Sikh. So, and look at the sacrifices made by Sikh gurus to protect Hindu dharma. In fact, the Sikhism was formed to protect Hindu religion. Today, these artificial attempts by forces across to create a divide between Hindus and Sikhs will not in the long run succeed. Yes, temporary things are happening. What you saw in London or what you saw in San Francisco, there are elements in our diaspora there who are being propped up by Pakistan ISI, and we have credible information about it. And Amritpal Singh, you saw what happened on that day in Ajnala. Some of his associates were with swords attacking policemen. And will you accept in any other country, if you attack a policeman with swords, the police will not act? They have to be brought to justice. They have to be brought. There is a law in this country, and if you are raising your private army, it has to be dealt with under law. You cannot be allowed. Tomorrow, somebody else will get up and say, "I will raise my own army. I don't accept Constitution of India."
Okay.
Now this is not acceptable, and this country will not tolerate this.
And that's what I was saying, that the police was damned for not reacting to what happened in Ajnala. Ambassador Manju, I know you have to leave now, so we'll let you go. Thank you for your intervention, making a clear point that this can no longer be ignored. It's not possible to ignore what has happened in the United Kingdom, what's happening in Canada. We thank you for your time. Sherby, give me a second. What I want to do is, I went to see how many people were protesting, and all of you are absolutely right. There's no mass protest so far that I've seen on the streets of Punjab. There are even where the protests are happening, which is basically the airport road in Mohali. There are not too many people, and the rain has further diminished the crowds. But it was kind of interesting, for lack of a better word, to hear why these people, they kept saying he's fighting drug addiction. They almost wanted to ignore the Khalistan question totally. This is just an excerpt from my conversation with those who came out to support Amritpal, and let me again underline, there were literally only a handful. Please listen in.
से पूछना चाहूँगी, आपने नशे की बात की कि कैसे वो मदद कर रहे थे कि यंग लोग जो नशा करते हैं वो नशा करना बंद कर दें, लेकिन उन्होंने साथ के साथ खालिस्तान की बात की, उन्होंने भारत के खिलाफ बात की। पुलिस का कहना है कि उनके जो पैसे हैं वो देश के बाहर से आते थे, उनके ISI और पाकिस्तान के साथ तो ताल्लुकात हैं। तो ठीक है, नशे का आपने सोशल इशू उठाया, लेकिन ये जो बाकी बातें हैं वो आप कैसे इग्नोर कर सकते हैं, वो आप कैसे माफ कर सकते हैं?
ਦੇਖੋ ਬਾਕੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿਣ ਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਦਾ ਹਾਲ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਕੀ ਹਾਲ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਰੋਟੀ ਜੋਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਉਹ? ਦੇਖੋ ਜੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਰੋਟੀ ਹੋਗੀ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੂਜੇ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਵਾਂਗੇ। ਇਹ ISI ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਨਾਲ ਲਿੰਕ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਬਾਹਰੋਂ ਪੈਸਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਏ, ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਉਰੇ ਕਈ ਵੀਰਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਚਲਾਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਚਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ। ਦੇਖੋ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਕੰਮ, ਕਿਤੇ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਪੈਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਕੰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਤੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਕੋਈ ਨਸ਼ਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਏ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਬਚ ਜਾਂਦਾ है तो मैं ਉਹਦੀ हेल्प करूंगा, क्यों नहीं करूंगा हेल्प?
नहीं, पर नशे की सिर्फ नशे की बात नहीं है ना, जो खालिस्तान की बात है उस पे क्या बोलेंगे?
खालिस्तान ਦੀ ਦੇਖੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਏ, ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਨੇ 41 ਸਾਲ ਰਾਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਉਹੀ ਖੂਨ ਹੈ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਕੀਤਾ, ਹੰਡਾਇਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਾਜ, ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਦਾ ਹੱਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ। ਤੇ ਰਾਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਕਿਉਂ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਆ? ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੰਦੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਜ਼ਾਵਾਂ 15 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਸੀ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ 18 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ 34 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ, 30 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਬੈਠਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਸਾਡੀ ਕੋਈ ਸੁਣਵਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ, ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਕੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਅਦਾਲਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕੋਈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੁਣਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ। ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੋਈ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਦੇਖੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ, ਜਦੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 47 ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਲਈ ਆਪਾਂ, ਤਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਉਰੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਰਾਜਸਥਾਨ ਵੱਲ ਨੂੰ, ਤੇ ਰਾਜਸਥਾਨ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਾਣੀ ਦਾ ਕਿਰਾਇਆ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ। ਤੇ ਉਸ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਵੱਲ ਨੂੰ, ਤੇ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਕਿਰਾਇਆ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਬਿਜਲੀ ਦਾ।
पर आप हैं तो भारत के लोग ना,
ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਦੇਖੋ ਭਾਰਤੀ
पहले आइडेंटिटी तो आपकी भारतीय है ना।
ਭਾਰਤੀ ਹੈ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ 47 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਜ਼ਾਦ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਰਾਇਮ ਪੈਸਾ ਕੌਮ ਕਹਿਤਾ।
Yeah, sorry, I was saying lots of mixed up comments there, Sherbir. That's what I thought, and it made me think of what you were saying about diaspora and how things get mixed up and myth and fact all intermingle. How worried should we be about these kind of voices? I'll start with you, Sherbir.
Barkha, we need to have, so let's go back in order. These conversations have emanated from Amritpal raising them, B, circumstances, whether at the time of the farmers' protest and subsequently, whereby, and I never saw this in the past, and I say this out of personal experience, where any Sikh who's disagreeing is suddenly branded as a Khalistani. So there are a bunch of circumstances which are driving certain conversations. Most of these conversations are half-baked, half myth, and of course his supporters are going to keep reveling in this little make believe world. But let me tell you something that I personally stand for, and I can vouch for far more than Amritpal can, which is that most Sikhs of my generation, the order of our identity is Indian first and Sikh second, and that's pretty much the order in which it stands. Now, coming to this issue with regards to Amritpal, coming back to, I am of the firm view that sunlight is the best disinfectant. It is established that somebody till a couple of days back was on camera tom-tomming around and saying, I'm not afraid of anybody, let the police come, etc. It was a very different circumstance in Ajnala where he seems to be ruling the roost. But suddenly, here we have this man sort of, running away from pillar to post, and all his bravado has gone out of the window. But at the same point of time, it's really important to the police has been making statements. Lots of folks have been making statements about the fact that there's absolute peace and tranquility in Punjab. The protests are isolated at a few places. It's important to bring sunlight to this matter. It's important to be for a model prosecution to be run, a prosecution that will withstand the test of law and that buys into public confidence. That will be very important. Otherwise, unfortunately, his myth will grow a lot like the myth of Jarnail Singh Pindrawale, which is far more myth as compared to what he really was. Amritpal is already sort of calling himself Pai Saab, and nobody's referring to him by his name, and that's all giving us a direction. And at this point of time, the state government needs to come out, communicate openly. Number two, we need to have a model prosecution in this case. This cannot be a case that languishes and that the typical.
You made an important point. You made an important point, Sherbi. Before I go to Tavleen and SP Ved for closing comments, I'm not seeing the political public face of the government. The police has been put forth to be the face of this. Does that bother you?
It does. I believe both the center and the state need to speak on this issue as one. This is a genuine national security matter, a genuine matter involving India's sovereignty, and it's and there are two parts to it. Not that we've reached the stage where we should be significantly alarmed. I think we're somewhere in between where this is dangerous. This needs to be nipped in the bud. But more importantly, we need all such issues need political solutions, and the political leadership needs to come out and speak in one voice on this matter.
Okay, Tavleen, let me bring you in before I give SP Ved the last word. Do you not think this is the national security issue? I know in those voices there were a lot of other grievances, identity, MSP. हमारी तो कोई गल ही नहीं सुनता. No one listens to us. But this is how a lot of insurgencies, separatist sort of campaigns have started, right?
Look, I'm not saying it's not a national security issue. I'm saying that it is. And I'm saying that having lived through that before, and Sherbir, of course, has heard many more interviews than me. He always knows more than I do. But I want to say that the interview that I saw of Amritpal Singh, he says clearly, we can discuss it. If you can discuss Hindu Rashtra, you can discuss Khalistan. Discuss it. If you lock him up, if he's tortured in jail, if he's killed in jail, if his supporters are killed, you're going to see Punjab explode. And I promise you, it's because one, there's this impression spread around that it's being ruled from Delhi by Kejriwal and not by Maan. This is exactly what happened. At that point, the chief minister of Punjab was totally controlled by Delhi. And you've got to see that even if it's a national security issue, there are two ways of dealing with a national security issue. Deal with it politically, or bring in the police and start killing people and torturing people and see what happens.
But no one has been killed or tortured. The police was instructed not to fire a shot or use lethal force, which is why he escaped. Which is why he managed to escape.
Look, excuse me. How did the police reach a stage where they allowed a police station to be attacked? Then they say, they will be carrying the Granth Sahib, and so we couldn't shoot back. How did these guys manage to attack a police station? That's an act of police negligence, in my view. What was the police sleeping all this time?
Okay,
I come to this.
SP Ved, and then Sherbir, if you want to come in briefly. SP Ved, the police is under the microscope, and the police unofficially has been saying, at least, that when they were on this 25-kilometer car chase, most of which has been caught on CCTV, they had orders not to use force, not to use lethal force, not to fire, and that did tie their hands. They were orders to bring this man in without any shots being fired. I'm sure that made it tougher for them to arrest him. But yes, questions will be raised as to how we got to this point at all. Mr. Ved.
Barkha, that must be right. What you are saying, policemen are sharing with you, because otherwise there's no need for 25-kilometer chase. You could have put barriers, let's say 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer away from the spot, have the barriers erected and just order shoot. All these vehicles would have been shot down and people would have been killed. But then very same people who are criticizing police today would have otherwise criticized police that they have used firearms to stop a person who has not even fired on police. Now, police is in a difficult situation. That's why I said these are very, very sensitive and delicate issues and need to be handled politically. I do agree with my two co-panelists. Yes, handle it politically. But then if you leave it to police will have to enforce that law of the land applies to everyone. And that has to be taken care of. It is a sensitive matter and we need to handle it very, very carefully. Today, last point, one thing that Punjab needs is weaning away our youth from drugs. And number two, a lot of young boys are leaving Punjab to Canada or all those places. That should not be our future Punjab. I think if somebody works on these, everyone in Punjab would love him.
Yeah, I should mention, Sherbir, before you make your last comment, that Sidhu Moosewala's Barsi was over the weekend and his parents came out in support of Amritpal Singh. So there's a lot that's happening under the surface here that we have to be very alert to, very careful of, even though there's no visible mass sort of mobilization in support of Amritpal Singh. Very quickly, Sherbir, one question I had for you was, when the farmers' protest happened, they used to be so angry that they were dubbed Khalistanis, right? I don't believe this kind of rhetoric of the kind we're hearing from Amritpal Singh supporters is helping any farmer who's still waiting for his MSP. In fact, it gives the opposite opportunity for everyone to sort of say, hey, see, we told you so. So who is this helping? I mean, this is very strange what's going on. This man, having spent his life in Dubai, being actually a man with short hair, not being particularly religious, spending time in Georgia, then landing up randomly in Punjab, and then becoming this figure. Sherbir, quickly, we've got to close.
Barkha, I think you've answered pretty much what I would have said, which is that the ability of the Khalistani drivel to be hyphenated with real issues of Punjab, which is our drug problem, which is our economy being in shambles, the fact that we don't have employment due to which people need to go outside, is the hyphenation has never helped Punjab, and I don't think it's going to serve its cause anymore. But to just round up, I'm going to completely agree with Ms. Tavleen Singh on where she mentioned that any sort of extrajudicial, extra legal action that is involved in that sort of happens with regard to Amritpal or any of his supporters is going to sort of work towards the myth quotient, is going to allow the diaspora and those acting against Indian interests to genuinely push to put pedal to the metal, as they would say. And therefore, I'm going to reiterate what I previously said. We need a model prosecution. India is watching, the world is watching, Punjab is watching. We need a model prosecution of these guys. And the Punjab police, the political leadership, all need to come out together. This is not a police solution. This is not just a political solution. It's a law and order issue that needs to be dealt with a firm hand, but a just, fair, and model hand at it.
I don't think anyone can disagree with what you just said. Thank you very much. We are continuing to report from the ground. We'll be here through the week, bringing you voices from the ground and seeing whether there is a resolution. Will Amritpal Singh be arrested, as the police believes? The police do say they still believe they will get him and get him soon. Sherbir Panak, Tavleen Singh, SP Vaid, and earlier to Ambassador Manjul. Thank you. And to our audience, keep watching our special reports from Punjab. We'll see you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.